All right, welcome back. This is Vodcast 6A on covalent compounds. We're going to look at very quickly what a covalent compound is, as well as a little review of where we've been in the past unit. And so we were talking about ionic bonds, Coach Forrester, and there's three types of these bonds.
Yep.
But ionic are just, the key there is that ionic deals with these thing called cations and anions.
Right.
And they deal with the transfer of electrons. And so as we are using those positively charged cations, they're going to give away electrons, and those negatively charged anions are going to receive or take electrons to create this ionic bond, where basically you get a positive and a negatively charged atom that are going to attract each other.
Right, and you get a neutral overall compound.
A neutral compound as you're making that and as you're writing those formulas. So what about covalent?
Covalent, a little bit different than ionic. Instead of transferring electrons, the key word here is sharing electrons. So they're sharing electrons between two non-metals. Okay, so they have to be non-metals. So in ionic, we were dealing with metals and non-metals. Now we're only dealing with non-metals.
Then we also have this kind of bond called a metallic bond. This don't happen real often.
Right.
But just basically the metals such as copper will bond multiple atoms of itself with itself.
Just makes it
to
copper.
Create these copper metal, a metallic bond, and bonded to these other atoms
of copper.
Copper.
So it's a metallic bond. It's within itself mainly, or it can happen within other metals.
Okay. So real quick, just to review ionic bonding. Remember, it was between a metal and a non-metal. So everything left on the periodic table with something to the right. It was a positive and negative charge. You created a neutral compound, and we were transferring electrons there. We were transferring electrons. And so these ionic compounds have a neutral charge. We wrote those formulas where we balanced those charges and used that crisscross method. But that is kind of the key with ionic bonding.
Right. Transfer, and then dealing with all the positives, positive 1, positive 2, positive 3, minus 2, minus 1. All right, so you're dealing with the positive and negatives and how they interact with each other. So they cancel out to become neutral overall.
A neutral compound.
Neutral compound.
Okay, and so now we're going to move into covalent and look at what the difference is. So go ahead.
Covalent bonds, remember, we said the covalent bonds, the main difference is they share, and they're between non-metals. All right, so when we share, two or more non-metals, good point. When we share electrons, there are some interactions that occur because you have all these different charged particles trying to get close to each other. All right, so you have attractions between the electrons and the nucleus of each atom. So here's an atom over here, and here's another atom. All right, so you have attractions between the electrons and the nucleus, and then also repulsions between the two nucleus or the two nuclei and the two electrons, or all the electrons basically. Because remember, like charges, they like to get away from each other, and opposite charges like to attract.
So all those attractions and repulsions are what makes these covalent bonds different and special. Is that you've got a bunch of repulsions in there that are pushing things away from each other, but then you've got attractions between the negatives and the positives that are holding this together.
Right. So you got repulsions between the electrons and the nucleus, and then attractions between the electrons and the nucleus. Okay. So that's a mouthful there, but you kind of see the point here. You got our opposite charges are attracting each other, and like charges are repelling.
Okay. So. Well, that's covalent bonding in a nutshell, and we'll come back in the next video and look at naming just a little bit. And you want to talk about that little diagram? You're circling something.
Yeah, I did circle that diagram, but that diagram is just kind of a pictorial or kind of showing of how the electron clouds kind of merge together of two atoms, and you have the two nucleus over here, and then the electron clouds kind of merging into one.
The cloud of negative stuff.
Cloud of negative stuff.
Okay. Well, that's it. Covalent bonding, and we'll see you guys next time.
Okay. See you.